From our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Zahra Syed. Our top story tonight. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has condemned the International Court of Justice for its ruling to protect Palestinians. Netanyahu described any attempt to deny Israel's rights to defend itself as blatant discrimination against the Jewish state. Israel's Minister of National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir, has described the ICJ's provisional measures against Israel as anti-Semitic. He also accused the international body of persecuting Jewish people. The International Court of Justice has issued a provisional order directing Israel to take measures to prevent acts that could lead to the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. However, the court did not order an immediate ceasefire and halt in Israel's military operation. The court voted overwhelmingly for the measures 15-2 and 16-1. Israel has been asked to file a compliance report within a month. The no votes came from Judge Julia Sebutinde of Uganda and ad hoc Judge Aharon Barak of Israel. The court also admitted South Africa's petition alleging genocidal acts in Gaza. The case will now go on trial, which will take years. ICJ President Judge Joan Donoghue cited inflammatory comments from Israeli officials as evidence supporting South Africa's claims that Israel is committing genocide. The ICJ's order requires Israel to punish incitement to genocide and improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Experts say the ruling represents a diplomatic setback for Israel and provides tacit legitimacy to South Africa's genocide claim. Governments that have made statements in support of South Africa's case include the 57 nations of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Venezuela, Maldives, Namibia, and Cuba. In related news, South African President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa welcomed the International Court of Justice's ruling. The country's Minister of International Relations, Nali Pandor, however, said, "How do you provide aid and water without a ceasefire?" American Muslim human rights organization Justice for All expressed similar concerns. Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid of JFA asked the court how genocide can be prevented and how aid can be provided if there is no end to hostilities. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry also expressed its approval of the ICJ's decision. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan also expressed support for the court's temporary injunction against inhumane attacks in Gaza. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez also welcomed the decision, urging all parties to implement the interim measures. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron is calling for an immediate ceasefire in Israel's war on Palestine. During his visit to Jerusalem and Ramallah, Cameron emphasized the need for humanitarian aid and civilian protection. He urged Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to halt the fighting and reiterated support for a two-state solution. Cameron also highlighted the suffering in Gaza and called for more aid delivery via additional crossing points. There are 130 Israeli prisoners held by Hamas, with a potential ceasefire deal on the table. Cameron also met with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and stressed Britain's support for a two-state solution. He also suggested using the Israeli port city of Ashdod for aid deliveries, while the UK and Qatar jointly sent a 17-ton consignment of family-sized tents to Gaza. The Palestinian Health Ministry reports that at least 183 people have been killed and 377 others injured over the past 24 hours in Gaza. Israeli forces fired on a group of Palestinians awaiting humanitarian aid at a roundabout. At least 20 people were killed and 150 injured, according to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. Israeli forces have relentlessly targeted refugee camps and public facilities in the city of Khan Yunis in Gaza, while artillery shelling. Meanwhile, snipers have shot at Palestinians leaving Al-Hamal hospital, even when they were carrying white flags. Amongst the victims are two brothers who were leaving Al-Amal hospital. An Israeli overnight air attack on a house in the Al-Husseina neighborhood of the Nusayrat refugee camp killed at least 11 people, Al Jazeera Arabic reports. The situation in Khan Yunis has become increasingly perilous for civilians, with snipers targeting anyone attempting to leave facilities in search of shelter or safety. The UN reports heavy fighting near hospitals in Khan Yunis, including Al-Aqsa, Nasser, Al-Amal, and Al-Khair. Since October 7th, Israeli attacks on Palestinians have killed over 26,000, with 64,487 wounded. Israel has reported 1,139 deaths in connection with the October 7th Hamas attacks. Qatar has alleged Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is deliberately hindering negotiations for a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of prisoners for personal political interests. Qatari Foreign Ministry spokesman Majid al-Ansari expressed outrage at leaked recordings purportedly capturing Netanyahu criticizing Qatar's role in mediating. Ansari called Netanyahu's comments irresponsible and destructive, but not surprising, emphasizing this jeopardizes innocent lives, including those of Israeli prisoners. Netanyahu's office has not yet responded. The standoff further complicates already challenging negotiations for aid, ceasefire, and the release of about 130 prisoners in Gaza. Support for the war remains high amongst Israelis, but opinion polls show lagging support for Netanyahu and his far-right coalition. Al Jazeera names 4,216 children killed by Israel. Details come after the break. Stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Al Jazeera has unveiled the names of 4,216 children from newborns to 17-year-olds who have been killed in the ongoing Israeli war against Palestine. This update is part of Al Jazeera's Know Their Names project, which sheds light on the devastating impact of Israel's genocide in Gaza. The alarming statistics show that 75% of the named children did not reach their teenage years. Over half were under the age of 10, and almost 500 were younger than 2 years of age. Since October 7th, Israeli attacks have killed at least 10,000 children, averaging one Palestinian child's death every 15 minutes. Save the Children is calling for a ceasefire and urges Israel to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza, where children also face the threat of famine and disease. Civil rights group Palestine Legal has revealed a sharp rise in the FBI's questioning of pro-Palestine activists across the United States. They say the FBI is targeting these activists based on their social media posts condemning Israeli violence against Palestinians. Reports suggest FBI agents are visiting activists armed with printed copies of their tweets, their Facebook posts, and TikTok videos depicting the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza. Palestine Legal has expressed concern over the FBI's actions, labeling them as an attempt to intimidate and censor those who speak out against Israel's policies. The group emphasizes that activists have the right to condemn apartheid and genocide and are under no obligation to speak to FBI agents without an attorney present. The American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee also has documented an increase in FBI questioning of Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslims, characterizing it as state intimidation tactics aimed at suppressing dissent. Advocates advise activists to assert their right to an attorney when approached by federal agents and to report incidents of harassment. They argue that such targeting based solely on the ethnicity or faith harks back to post-9/11 crackdowns and violates constitutional freedoms. Kenneth Eugene Smith has become the first prisoner executed in Alabama using the untested method known as nitrogen hypoxia, despite opposition from rights groups. Smith was convicted of murder in 1988 and survived a botched lethal injection attempt in 2022. Nitrogen hypoxia involves replacing the oxygen required for breathing with pure nitrogen gas. A respirator mask is placed on the prisoner's face, depriving him or her of oxygen, leading to unconsciousness in seconds and death in minutes. Critics argue that it poses risks, such as choking, and may not ensure a humane execution. The execution was conducted within a 30-hour window, with Smith reportedly struggling for 2 minutes before succumbing after 22 minutes. Though controversial, nitrogen hypoxia continues the tradition of experimenting with execution in the U.S. This is especially the case as obtaining lethal injection drugs becomes increasingly challenging. Human rights organizations and UN rapporteurs have raised concerns about the untested nature of nitrogen hypoxia, calling it potentially cruel and unusual punishment. In the 2024 U.S. presidential election, analysts say America faces an unparalleled political battleground with fears of eroding democracy and authoritarianism. They warn of a nation sitting on a power keg with declining faith in governing bodies and increasing divisions over issues such as crime, immigration, race, foreign wars, and the cost of living. Incumbent President Joe Biden prepares for a grueling campaign against former President Donald Trump. Trump, who is facing 91 criminal charges, vows authoritarian-style retribution if he wins. His legal battles overlap with key campaign dates, adding to the uncertainty. Despite Biden's legislative successes, opinion polls show him trailing Trump. A survey in early December for the Wall Street Journal newspaper showed Trump ahead by 4 percentage points, 47% to 43%. When 5 potential third-party and independent candidates were included, Trump's lead over Biden expanded to 6 percentage points, 37% to 31%. Democrats plan to center the campaign around abortion rights, hoping to mobilize women and independents. Biden's defenders point to his record. That includes the creation of some 14 million jobs, strong GDP growth, and the biggest climate action in history. The U.S. and Iraq have initiated discussions concerning the presence of American and other foreign troops in Iraq. Baghdad hopes these talks will result in a clear timeline for reducing their presence. The U.S. has stationed forces in Iraq as part of the international coalition against ISIS. But Iraq's prime minister, backed by Iran-aligned parties, has called for their departure. The long-planned discussions come at a time of heightened tensions in Iraq, linked to Israel's war on Palestine. Both countries have agreed to establish working groups that will eventually formulate a specific timeline for the gradual reduction of coalition advisors in Iraq. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin confirmed the meetings would start soon, aiming to transition towards a lasting bilateral security partnership. Experts say the U.S. acknowledges the need for a shift in the security cooperation relationship, with the possibility of reducing American forces. Recent months have seen more than 150 attacks on coalition troops, many attributed to Iran-linked groups opposing U.S. support for Israel. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.